All right, hello and welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. I'm Scott. Over here, I've got it wrong again. Over here
this
is
way.
Rob, and we are here to talk all about WWE Survivor Series 2022. Of course, this time it's the WarGames edition. Was it a success? Was it a failure? We're gonna dive quite deep into it. Of course, we talked a lot about tradition changing recently with Survivor Series, but is this going to give Survivor Series new legs for the future? We'll discuss that and a whole lot more as far as the card and the results and all the highlights right after this.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.
All right, so as we said, welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. What we're going to do here is our recap and review of Survivor Series 2012. 2012? No, that was a while ago. Of course, we did a watch along of that. But hey, so many dates in my head with Survivor Series. But hey, this time we are talking about the most recent one, 2022, I should say. Of course, like I said, I'm Scott. I've got Rob over here to help me out as well. You can see we're on the water today. It's a little bit different to our build-up show yesterday. But thank you to everyone that joined us on the build-up show. If you've never witnessed one of those before, well, go back and check it out. I know we are hyping ourselves and yourself, as we say, for the PLE. And a big part of it is kind of conversation that is very in the moment. But we do go deeper onto certain subjects as well that are kind of we don't get to talk about other times as far as the wrestling world goes as well. So I know a lot of you end up going back and watching it on demand, which is fantastic. So if you're new here, check out our build-up show if you haven't already, if you weren't part of the stream yesterday. But right now, we are doing a recap and review. But first of all, Rob, how are you feeling today? A little bit less of a sore head. Basically, as we mentioned, it's quite a all over the place stream and stuff like that, very in the moment. But we also get a little bit loose with them, don't we, Rob? Especially you.
I think that's the right. Do you know what? It was the one and only time that I think I'm gonna appear drunk on this stream, because I was really trying to keep it together, and I was like, I'm doing a great job. Then I watched it back, and I was like, what? I don't really know what I said, to be honest. But
no,
yeah, it was fun.
You say the one and only time, and I got to say, Rob, I hope it's not, because I had a lot of fun chatting to you in that zone we were in. So yeah, let's not too be hasty here and kind of get rid of that opportunity in the future. Of course, a little bit further, mate. Maybe you would have been a bit too far gone, but I think you were a good level, a fun level,
Maybe then we need to do something of we'll play a drinking game, and then we'll play a drinking game as we watch wrestling, and basically every time Michael Cole says something,
especially from a certain era. If we could do stuff from around 2009 when he whenever he says vintage, whenever he says what other classic ones did he have back then? 2 count only. Does he say that often? Was that him?
He has. Or even if we just go, literally, we can just find a compilation of stuff that Michael Cole's repeated, and every time he says it, we just take a shot.
If we take a compilation, they'll be saying it a lot, then, mate. So
I mean,
not quite
that's something for the stream, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. Cameron's here live with us, buddy. Thank you very much for joining us. Hey, Rob and Scott. Much appreciated, Cameron. What did you think of Survivor Series, mate? Let us know as we go throughout the stream here. We're going to be, again, reacting to any live comments, but also stuff on demand. So whether you're watching live or on demand, please drop your comments below and let us know what you thought of Survivor Series. But let's just start out with a basic kind of feel for the show, mate. What did you think of it overall before we get into it match by match? So no specifics on any matches just yet.
So I started watching it last night, and I was like, I can't focus, so I had to rewatch it today.
Okay, right. So did you watch it all and then rewatch it all, or just?
So I watched half of the first match, and I was like, I can't comment on it. I don't want to say go back off that. So I watched the whole show again, including the first part of that half match.
Oh right, okay, gotcha.
So I literally rewatched that and then continued watching the rest, and I really enjoyed it. It was
I thought it was a really good show. I did a similar story to you in that I made it to. Again, we're talking about 1 a.m. over here, guys. It's been a long day for us as well. So usually we do stay all the way up, but it started at 1 Yeah, I watched all the first match. I watched the second match, and then I thought, you know what? Same as you, I was like, you know, it'd be better for me to just have a sleep and have a fresher mind on this tomorrow, because I was starting to forget. Even when I started to rewatch it, I was like, wait, who won the Finn AJ match again? So I had to kind of go back on that. And hey, I weren't as far gone as you. I was just tired. But yeah, so for that reason, I kind of stopped and thought, let me watch the rest of it today. Caught up with it today, and I think it was a really good show. Now I'm hearing a lot of people say it was a very long show. I don't actually know how long it was, because I watched it in parts. Was it 3.5 hours? I think it just felt longer for us again, sorry, in the UK, because it is 1 a.m. But for me, I didn't quite feel that, because I want to sleep at 3:30 in the morning. So rather than, I don't know, what would it have been, 5-ish or something like that? So
yeah,
yeah, not so bad for me. But yeah, overall, then it seems like we both quite enjoyed the show.
definitely. Yeah, definitely that. It was, I said, it was fun. The spots that we got to see, obviously before we get into great detail, we did say there was going to be a lot of stuff that they're going to do for the WarGames stuff, purely because that's what they need, because of the promo footage and stuff for building up for the next year.
Yeah.
And I really thought it was going to be like over the top, and it was going to be the same spots we've seen before. And boy, did they deliver on stuff that I didn't expect to see.
Yeah, it was very different. Both war game matches themselves were different as well. So that's a good way, I think, to segue into that first match. Of course, we're going to go in the order that we actually saw things on the night as well. So we'll go match per match as we go throughout this stream here. So with that being said, let's head on to talk about the first match. And originally, as we said on the build-up show, it was an unknown who was going to be that fifth member of the babyface team. And of course, it was revealed to be none other than Becky Lynch on SmackDown. We talked a lot, Rob, about whether or not that was a good idea. You know, was it simply to kind of prevent the kind of Sasha chance and the potential boos that Becky could have even faced, you know, just because she's not Sasha in that moment that everyone wants Sasha. We mentioned yesterday it was in Boston, and you coined the term Bostonites, which I still find hilarious.
I'm sticking with it.
The Boston Knights, apparently, I don't know if you've heard, apparently they were in full force for Sasha Banks, but WWE actually muted it, and that happens later on in the other women's match, which we'll get to. But with that in mind, I definitely think it was a good idea to bring Becky back on SmackDown. Do you agree now?
100%. We were saying this yesterday. Like, when you have someone as a fan favorite, as let's say Sasha is a fan favorite in general, right? Heel or face, she's a fan favorite. She's loved by the fans. So is Becky. And when you're in one of your fan favorites' hometowns, heel or face, they get the biggest pop of the night. And I think bringing back Becky the night before for SmackDown averted that boo, because it wasn't Sasha.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
people were glad to see her back. You know, like we were
exactly,
saying, so happy to see her back. But realistically, it could have been quite risky to bring her back on the night. So
yeah, and I'm glad it didn't happen, because if it did, I don't think the way that the outcome happened at the end of the match, I don't think it would have been met then with great kind of like the eyes of, oh, what a fantastic spot, and people would have been like, well, it would have been better if it was Sasha. And I think that would have downplayed the match itself, like the entire match.
Yeah.
And not just Becky. So
set off on the wrong foot, you know, like so. Yeah, it would have been. But there it is. Of course, a lot of rumors still about Sasha Banks. Whether or not she's coming back, we'll have to wait and see. But she didn't at this event, and it was all about Becky Lynch being a returnee instead. Now, what I really enjoyed about this, Rob, is when they started out, they really went into the WarGames history and hyped it up through that. And I think that's a good thing to do. That's what they did in NXT, because that's how NXT kind of was run as well. But you haven't really seen it on the main roster up until well, very recently, of course, with. It was sparingly they would do it over the years, but more recently with Triple H, of course, who was at the hands, in that top role in NXT at the time. So it makes sense that kind of continues. Of course, they did use promo shots of NXT matches, as we mentioned on the build-up, but they kind of kept some cameras from afar, and only the close-ups were on certain guys that are still in the company. But yeah, they hyped up the history. Even later on in the night, of course, we get KO wearing a Dusty shirt, which was fantastic.
Lovely.
They also mentioned, and I love this in the men's one as well, we'll get to later on, of course, in more detail, but they mentioned Paul Heyman being such a vital part of it for his team, the Bloodline, because he had his own little crew in WarGames about 30 years ago as well. So I really like doing all that. But getting into the match itself, first one, of course, we had an interesting start with the cages. Nikki Cross on top of the cage, Rhea Ripley kind of doing the pull-ups and things like that. I thought that was fantastic. But then starting off really early on with just fast-paced action. What did you think about this match overall?
I enjoyed it. I generally thought when they start bringing weapons, I always look at it when they bring weapons in. Is it going to set the tone right for the way WarGames is? So when we've seen previous ones in NXT, and obviously that's the main event, one that springs to mind would be Undisputed Era versus like Ricochet, Pete Dunne at that point, and War Raiders, Viking Raiders. And for such they brought in tables, they brought in like chairs and stuff, and you always think, how far can it go before it becomes a weapons match inside the steel cage? And I always look at that as that's my concern, because then the thing you're using for the cage, you're bringing in weapons to make it even more vicious. So is it overlooking the match type itself?
Yeah, especially when you've got another one to do later on in the night.
Exactly. Especially, and that was my thought. I was like, are they going too big too soon? But I don't think they did. Like the way it was done, everyone had got their spots in. Certain things happened, but when Rhea got the poison mist, that was a great moment. They done the suplexes, all the women done the suplexes from the corners. Nice little spot. It was so simple and effective. They done stuff that could be done generally in a match, but then they had like extra height into it for some reason. I think it was just the way it was displayed, but it was so good. I enjoyed all of it.
Yeah, I thought the pacing was really good as well. We talked about this on our preview show. You know, Dan's concerns and Lucas's concerns with, you know, the match doesn't actually start for X amount of time. But again, it's not like they're just sitting around twiddling their thumbs. A lot's going on, and realistically, do pinfalls really tend to matter in the first 5 to 10 minutes of a match anyway? And yes, it is longer than 5 to 10 minutes. And generally speaking, of course, I'm talking about sometimes we do have quick pinfalls. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, for me, it's like, if you play the story right of like the momentum, the advantage, and just beating people up, which I think they did well in both of them, it works well. And the timing of who comes in when. There was only one time before the 5-on-5 happened that I can't remember which countdown it was, that was like, oh, it's getting a bit quiet now, like it's slowing down a bit. But other than that, you know, again, dealing with the momentum, I thought it was fantastic. You mentioned suplexes earlier. What I really appreciate is that mega suplex that was about to happen. Then Nikki Cross ruined it, which I thought was quite cool, because you don't usually see that. They usually hit the obvious spot. So to ruin it was cool. Yeah, loads of cool spots. I just want to run through some of the ones that I wrote down just so I don't forget. We had a fantastic EO moonsault from the top. We had the ladder spot where it breaks in half as well. And of course, as you said, touching on the end there, going with a KOD into the cage, and then Becky jumping off just to finish it there as well. But I think before I was worried. I thought Damage Control should have won. But the way the match went, I think I was more than happy with the finish. Really, I was happy with the way it kind of ended. So I do still feel like Damage Control need to do something.
Yeah,
it
is strange, isn't it? It's because when I was watching our match, I can't remember who we didn't do a prediction.
We didn't do a prediction for it. No, yeah.
Because I was thinking, who did I say? Because I literally couldn't remember when I was watching back this morning, and a part of me was like, well, Damage Control, there's 3 of them that are legit a team, and then you've got 2 extras for it. And they, as just watching it, they didn't look like a unit. Whereas the other 5 women, even though they're all independent singles wrestlers, looked like they look like a team. They look like an actual team that are like, right, this is it. And I don't know. I don't know why, but they went in as faces being underdogs. And even though they looked like they were the underdog, they didn't show that throughout the match. And it was done so well. It's like, look, you can't beat us. And every time they done something, the faces had a counteract for it. And it was great. Like I said, the spots were done. And do you know what? People were moaning about a month ago. Women's spots are bad on this, and they can't do this, and they're soft in this spot, and they don't do this right. And I think that WarGames match, like what a big win for all the women in that match. Great show for me. I enjoyed that match. It was probably one of my favorites of the night.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say next, man. Like when you compare the 2 WarGames, because it's never war. This was, I think, my favorite out of the 2 of them. I enjoyed a lot about the men's one. Don't get me wrong, but as a match as a whole, the presentation for a whole, this one I felt was better. There were more times in the second one where you did have that kind of countdown going, what's going on now? this one I think managed to get through those timings a little bit better. And the hardcore element was fantastic. Of course, they used a little bit of that with a Bloodline match later on as well, which again we'll get to. But for me, I think this was the better out of the two, even though the story told in the other one was better. And that's why it was good. There were two very different ways to do a War Games match. One was very story focused, and one was more kind of action based, I guess you could say. But yeah, really enjoyed this as well. Another little funny thing is when Alexa was on her way to the ring, she was kind of had to lift up a cable and throw it behind her. Really annoyed as well. I don't know if you spotted that. A little bit of a goof on her entrance there, but hey, just go with it, I guess. I really like the stuff. Speaking of damage control, though, the good thing I did like was when they were beating up Mia Yim between the two rings as well, the way they were working on that little section there. Again, it was used like that, similar with the Bloodline later on, and some other big spots in that match. But I really enjoyed what damage control did to Mia in that little section as well. And touching on Mia as well, I think she had a great performance for someone that's just come back into the fold. I think everybody in this match delivered. The only one that I thought, oh, you're a bit of an afterthought now, is really weird to say this, mate, but Alexa Bliss. Asuka, for years, I think Asuka's always been like, even when she's champ, she doesn't feel like she's got the main focus. And that's just the way she's been. But when the five of them were stood there at the end, and my eyes trailed over to who's in the team, who's successful. I thought Asuka, she's always in random teams. All right, it is what it is. I'm used to that now. When I trailed back over to Alexa, and I thought, wait, you were at one point maybe the most talked about thing in this company just not that long ago. And now
it's crazy.
Nobody, I don't want to say nobody cares, but let's be real. What are you looking for? What's she going to do next? And that is nothing to, again, if anyone's new here, if you don't know how we feel about Alexa Bliss on this channel, we do not hate her. We're not against her. We are big fans. I think she's one of the best as far as performers, as far as the character side and her acting ability. I think is one of the best in the entire company. But that's why I'm kind of mentioning this here, because she's kind of fallen into a bit of a rut here. And again, whose fault that is, I don't know, but it's really strange.
Yeah, it feels like it's one of those where, as you said, all 10 women showed up that night in that match, and they all delivered. But only look at the winners. Okay, Becky comes back, she gets a big pop anyway because it's Becky Lynch. Asuka as well, and like, as you said, as you go further down the line of women, Bianca obviously at the top, she's the champion. But you're right. Like, I think the only one that really, I don't want to say didn't stand out, but we're so used to Alexa being that main focus.
The main focus, yeah.
When she's not the main focus, because you've got the other women around her.
She's an afterthought in that team.
She got lost in that little shuffle. And it's weird to say that because, as you said, the stuff she done with Bray, the stuff after Bray, she took that break and then come back, and we had this weird segments with her and the doctor. And and all this sort of stuff, and Lily, and it was like, what's going on? But I think it's done on purpose, because the more she becomes an afterthought, and the more everyone else looks away from her, I think this is the way we're going to get her to turn, because I definitely think there's Bray stuff going on. I mean, the flashing stuff. I think so. Like the Uncle Howdy. I mean, we've seen the buzzard stuff and
And she got distracted that time. I don't know if it's just the playing to fan theories and that, but I hope you're right, because it would be good for that. It would be kind of well played if that's the case, but I'll fear that it's not. I fear that it's kind of like she is just lost in the shuffle. I guess the argument is that when she goes back to the top, it's like, believable. She's a big star, but it's strange that at the moment, and again, not that she didn't perform well in this match, but from someone that was one of the biggest stars in the company to them being a 5-person team and be the 5th most important at this very moment in time was a bit strange to me. A bit strange there. Briefly, we'll touch on some Bray Wyatt stuff there, just because we didn't get Bray Wyatt at all during this show. Any kind of thoughts on that?
Look, I'm all for Bray. Absolutely love this. And I think this stuff with Bray at the moment, it feels very much like Marmite as a big UK reference, where you either love it or you hate it. And I think because it's run on for so long and people just want stuff to happen, I think they're getting bored of all this stuff, the cryptic stuff and the slow build and all that. But I think that I'm down for a slow build. I love seeing a story. I love my mind being blown in the moments when you least expect it. The thing like Alexa, cutting a promo and then literally just switching off for a second and then coming back again. To me, that stuff, I'm like, that's the stuff that gives me goosebumps because I love that sort of stuff in films. And we both do sort of movie podcasts. So when we talk about that stuff, that's what grips us.
Yeah.
So for a slow build on Bray is great. The stuff that we spoke about with LA Knight now coming into the fold, I think this is where we now get normal Bray and it's going against these other people that gets the Uncle Howdy stuff. Because it's like Uncle Howdy is the main story, and then everything else that happens with Bray Wyatt is another story. So you kind of got one story, another one running underneath it. So they've got to align to get everything happening. But yeah, like, I'm down for it. I'm just waiting now to see what happens because LA Knight's fantastic.
Yeah.
To put him with Bray, I'm not against that at all. I just want to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, now that we know PLE in December and the next one being late January with a Rumble, could be interesting how they stretch out feuds and stuff like that, and especially with that one, that could be one that potentially suffers unless there is a big kind of change or reveal in that kind of gap of what is it like? It can't be like 8 weeks, is it, to the Rumble? Like, let's have a look. When's I think it is the 28th or something like that. So Royal Rumble 2023 is on the 28th. How about that? Got it right. Today being the 27th. Pretty much 1, 2. Let's see how many extra weeks are in December. Okay, hold on. This is fine content, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Pretty much 9 weeks. It is a day off of 9 weeks before the next PLE, which is crazy. So yeah, I'm really shocked they didn't do day one or TLC. As much as I'm not really a fan of the gimmick stuff, I just think something needs to happen. You never know. Maybe they'd have a special kind of SmackDown or special Raw or something like that in between, or we can only dream for a Saturday night's main event or something like that. But hey,
I imagine.
We'll see. Anyway, let's move away from Bray Wyatt because, again, he wasn't even on the show. And let's talk about something that did take place on the show. That was the next match, of course, with AJ Styles versus Finn Balor. And, of course, you can see in the background, we've got the OC and the JD in the Judgment Day. And they didn't actually play as big of a role in this match as I thought. The women weren't involved at all because they were so it's weird putting them on a graphic because they were already kind of used up, I guess, in the women's match. It had only just taken place. It would have been silly for them to come straight out, I think, unless, as we said on the preview a week earlier, you come up with the idea of them kind of brawling that it kind of feeds into either match. That didn't happen, sadly. But what did happen was a really nice introduction, again, based on history. I know he mentioned the Bullet Club a little while ago by name, of course, Michael Cole, but he does it again. He mentions Japan. AJ, by the way, comes out with a mask that he wore in Japan as well. Of course, Finn's wearing a mask recently as well, so that was quite cool to see the both of them come out like that. And a kind of contrast, big fan of Mouse, of course, the contrast between the two. But yeah, talking about the history between them, so much so they even mentioned the British Commonwealth Championship, which was quite funny as well, because I didn't expect to hear a reference like that. But I really like that they're allowing them to use kind of wrestlers' histories with each other and, in other companies and stuff like that at the moment. So that's a great thing. But going through the match itself, really enjoyed it. One of my kind of highlights was Balor kind of fighting off the calf crushing and stuff like that. But in the end, AJ Styles picks up the win in a pretty good match. I wouldn't say it's match of the year, like it definitely could have been. It was not match of the night either, but it was still a very good match on a very good card. And I think that's going to be a common theme as we go throughout the night. But really enjoyed this one. Maybe would have stood out more if it was on a different card as far as how impressive it was, but it was just a really solid match. I think they worked really well together, and Lucas will be happy because as much as there was outside kind of somewhat interference, there weren't interference in the match. It kind of they got dispersed of early on, so I actually thought this means there's a new member for someone coming out somewhere.
Yeah, me too.
I thought the amount of interference they've had lately in order to just get rid of him, but no, that was it. They just got rid of him and let the two guys go at it together. Great little shot of Balor in the corner, just kind of annoyed looking back at AJ. And AJ throwing up the too sweet, kind of to take the mick out of him or whatever. But yeah, really good match overall for me. What did you think?
Yeah, look, if someone says AJ Styles versus Finn Balor, who's going to say no? I'm not watching it. It's it's one of them things, isn't it? But yeah, the interference, I guess, or outside interruption. I think that's what it should be called, especially for this match. It was
It was a
it kind of
distraction to
happened.
get rid of the distraction, if that makes sense. You know, like,
Yeah. It kind of happened, and I thought, I would have gone. Like,
that's it.
Something's happening. Like,
Yeah,
something
yeah.
big has to happen now.
Yeah.
And at this point, I thought, it's like Mia coming out, is Rhea coming out, is Edge gonna appear, is Natalia gonna appear? Because obviously that happened. Is Ray gonna appear? I was like, there has to be something. Something has to happen for this to have that weird finish. And when that didn't, and then obviously we get the finish, I was like, oh, I was expecting more. And I think because of WWE's put it and built it that way, Judgment Day always have a plan B, C, D. And
I
I
just
just
straight up
didn't expect
lose. Yeah.
So that was a great shot factor. But I'm down. AJ Styles first, Finn Balor. I would happily see it again. I think now though, again, 9 weeks worth of there's no PLE, there's nothing happening now, like big shows at least. So can we get can they drag this for 9 weeks? That's my question.
Yeah, it's not the only feud with that kind of concern, is it? But yeah, I mean, they got to do something to kind of. I mean, building to the Rumble is going to be great. It'll be to give that 9 weeks to build. That's going to be interesting. But yeah, really don't know what they're going to do with some of these other feuds. But like you say, having those two guys working against each other, watching them face each other made me realize how similar they are as well, like moveset wise. You know, like you got both of them did the Pele kick and stuff like that. So and speaking of which, AJ brought out some of these kind of older moves where he did the kind of moonsault off the turnbuckle into the reverse DDT and stuff like that. Hit it so smoothly, and it's at that time when you look at AJ and you think, man, like you've got a different kind of body shape to what you had when you were younger. You're older, you're not going to move the same way, and you still pulled that off so seamlessly. It's like, it's incredible. Not that he's out of shape, I'm not saying that, but
it makes you feel sick, doesn't it?
Yeah. If you look at like AJ Styles early TNA day and you look at AJ Styles now, they look like different people in some sense, like, but they're both fit and agile performers. But what I'm saying is I'm surprised that you see in some ways Father Time hasn't quite caught up with AJ Styles just yet. So that was great. And again, same thing for Finn as well. I think they worked so well together in this. Definitely if this was a Wrestle Kingdom main event or a WrestleMania main event or something like that, I think we would have seen a bit of, an extra level that they would have gone to. And I think they could have gone to another level. But for its placement on the card, its placement in the feud, I thought it was very well done. So, you didn't want to overdo it because we had a lot going on with this show. But overall, very happy. And I think it kind of continues throughout the night as well, to be fair. So let's move on, though, to the next match. Now, I know this is probably going to be the one that gets people thinking, oh, this is where it dips and that and stuff like that, right? I do think it was probably the weaker of all the matches on the night. Ronda Rousey, of course, versus Shotzi for the SmackDown Women's title. But it's not a bad match, in my opinion. I thought it performed very, very well. I know you're not the greatest Ronda fan. You're not a fan of kind of a style and stuff like that. But hey, I'll give credit where it's due, man. I thought they worked really well together for two people that I was fearful. And there was one moment, and I'll get to it, that I was like, oh no, especially after what happened to Shotzi a few months back with the ladder, a few of the kind of sloppy things with Ronda as well. It felt like a risk putting these two in there together. But I got to say, man, I thought they performed really, really well. We had Shayna. As much as I don't like what Shayna's doing with Ronda, I think them, like we said on the build-up show, kind of petty, kind of mean girls-ish type thing. And it's like, you're supposed to be badass fighters. Why are you doing this stuff? As much as that's annoying, what I really did like was Shayna pushing Ronda out of the way and took the landing from Shotzi, which was really cool as well. Ronda, I really like the way she's playing up to the fans. I've got to say, which leg do you want me to work with? And then shouting at Shotzi saying, your fans picked this and stuff like that. I think she's trying. She's doing things. She's not just going through the motions. She's trying to add to her character there. So I thought it was quite good. And I know it's a lot of the same sort of submissions and stuff like that. But I thought this was a little sprinkled differently as a heel for Ronda. She didn't just do the same old thing. She was chatting rubbish to the fans. She was chatting rubbish to Shotzi. She was bragging to the camera. We had a great bit where it was way better than I thought it was at the time, because I was like, oh, that looks a bit sloppy. And then when they showed the replay, I realized how good it was when Shotzi dived into Ronda and she rolled through and slammed her. It was so quick that I thought, oh, Shotzi, she took the thing, rolled when and maybe it made it look a bit silly, but no, she didn't actually take the fall. She was so smooth in that roll through and hitting her move that it just happened so seamlessly. And it was, of course, well, yeah, man, she does all the judo stuff. You know what I mean? Like it kind of, so her background, I think, was used quite well in this match. And the only kind of downfall for me was the spot where Shotzi gets on the top rope and then she does the DDT and they fall at different times. And, you know, it's such a dangerous move to be doing. A DDT on that part of the ring is risky anyway. To be doing it where you're standing up high, way higher than your opponent on the top rope that you could slip from, and you're going to fall to the outside of the ring while they only fall to a certain part. It was a very dangerous move to go for. It didn't look great, but hey, no one got hurt, and it wasn't that bad. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, that's a major botch. It was just, it is where it is, you know. And of course, they used surely fake fans, stunt doubles, or whatever you want to call them, But I liked it. As hokey as I was, like, you know, we know they're not real fans. Hey, it's something different. We don't usually see that in that capacity anyway. Yeah, they stood there selling for ages, and in real life, everyone would be panicking because there's a lawsuit. But I thought they played it really well. And then, of course, eventually it would lead to some, again, more really impressive stuff from Ronda. I think the top rope arm drag, which doesn't sound like, you know, an arm drag. That's kind of Ronda's thing. But, like, it worked really well doing it from the top rope. And, of course, the Piper's pit even smoothly into the armbar for the win. I thought it was a really good match. It wasn't too long. It wasn't offensive. I thought it was, the weaker of the entire night. But just like the Finn and AJ one, it didn't need to go and be kind of outpacing the other matches or anything like that. I thought it was very well done. And I will say, you know, I've heard rumors that it was actually put together by a different backstage agent than usual. And it was actually the Brian Kendrick, apparently, who's back working backstage. So that is apparently who put this match together. And I can see it now, you know, kind of. I've always been a fan of Kendrick's work. I think he's been fantastic in the ring over the years. And if that's the case, then props to him and for putting this match together, and props to the two of them for working within their styles. I think they pleasantly surprised me. I'll say that.
Yeah. Are you ready for my?
Go on.
It was all right. I enjoyed it.
Wow.
I'm glad to sit down. Look, there were moments when, again, I think until we get past this cheesy Ronda Rousey phase of what I don't know. I don't know what it is, but there's moments with Ronda where 1 minute I'm like, oh, I believe everything. You know, like you're a legit a badass.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I don't know, like you said, just Mean Girls Ronda, and I'm thinking,
it doesn't fit.
You don't need that. Like it's
and
not
Shayna
needed
as
at
well.
all.
It's uncomfortable seeing Shayna play that role.
Yeah. But the match itself, it was great. You know, it done. It's as you said, it done what it needed to do. There were spots that didn't need to happen that were high risk. They're called high risk spots for a reason. But I mean, other than the slight botch, and I think there was nothing there that was really took away from the match. You know, it felt like this match made me feel like I was on a roller coaster, and that's not in a bad way, because it took me up to the moment I was like, oh, and then it took me back down again. You know, and Shayna being involved in things, and you know, them being on the outside and stuff. When you have a match that's just, it feels chaotic because of the way it's been, I guess, displayed that way.
Yeah. Organized
Even
chaos.
though, and I'm all for it, and I think that, if anything, that suits Ronda more, because we're not just an arm drag into a roll through, into an arm drag, into another one, into an arm bar, into a Piper's pit.
Changed it up, like I said, a top rope arm drag and things like that, and you know, using the fake audience members and stuff like that. I thought I do want to give props to both of these, because it was a match that I think a lot of people would have been like, oh, really, not really interested in. It's one I was least looking forward to. Not that I have anything against them, but I just thought, you know, I'm sure it'd be all right, whatever. But honestly, I was pleasantly surprised. And like you say, the character stuff, not a fan of. But what happened within the ring, and even Shayna's involvement, was good. But you know, look at Shayna as a heel in NXT. Well, why can't she be that version of Shayna? Why is it? I know, like you could say, you know, many strings to a bow and kind of act, you know, adding new kind of parts of her character and stuff.
Yeah, but I don't need to add that.
This, like, what's that?
They don't need to add anything to that.
But like,
give us back that Shayna.
It was weird enough with Nia. Like, you don't need it. Like, the whole point of you and Ronda is that you're you're legit friends from a badass industry, and you're badass fighters. Like that.
Exactly.
Why can't we get that together? So hopefully they do lean in that direction if they are going to keep these two together. As far as Shayna and Ronda, but as far as Shotzi goes, fantastic performance. It was pretty much what I thought it would be, as in probably a one and done now, to get us through to the next stage. Now going to be 9 weeks of who knows what, but yeah, congrats to Shotzi on a great performance, and congrats to Ronda as well, I think, for kind of changing things up here as well in quite a pleasant way. Now we get to, and we've already would have seen these at this point as well, a segment that involves the Sami Zayn situation. Now, we'd seen one earlier on in the night, actually, but this is the best one for me, between Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns. Of course, we had Reigns and Jay talking about earlier in the night, and we get another one later on with Jay and Reigns again, kind of getting an update. But this one was so well done. I was talking back to the TV, going, yes. Yeah, say that. Yeah, you said, yeah, that was so well done because of the story and the time and the pacing of it. And there's so much more with that to go when we actually get to the match itself. But we'll talk about that later on as well. But yeah, what did you think about these backstage segments sprinkled through the night to kind of set us up for it?
It really felt like, and it's weird saying this, it felt like they needed to be there, because without them, the rest of this bit of the story before WarGames wouldn't have made sense. And I know that sounds really weird because, it's just a backstage segment. But when you've got Jimmy or Jay, and there's like, you're my right hand man, like that.
They really played
something.
up to it. Yeah. They really played up to it.
And him saying like the way Roman was, and it really felt like Roman was, I'm in charge. I'll deal with it. Like he gave to speak to the person he needed to. He was like, right, get out, bring me Sami.
Yeah,
and it just felt so good
when Sami was there, and I was literally, like I say, talking to the TV, and I was like, Sami, don't lie to him, don't lie. Like it'll be worse, and it'll be worse in the storyline, not just worse for the character, worse for the storyline. I was like, yeah, tell the truth. And then when he goes, oh yeah, I couldn't tell Jay because he was going out there and it would have messed with his head. I couldn't quite explain it to him. He doesn't like me anyway. I was like, my goodness, like perfect. This is so much more realistic and how things would be written in the TV drama. I know it's kind of silly at times with these characters, but the way that was handled was so well done. And of course, we'll get to that match later on, but I just thought it was good to talk about those backstage promos that eventually get us there. Now, what actually comes next as far as matches go was, man, another great match. Triple threat here for the US title between Bobby Lashley, Seth Rollins, and Austin Theory. Now, this, again, put this on another card, and you might be thinking, yeah, definite match of the night. And it's still up there for me. Now, I thought, sometimes triple threats can be hit and miss, but someone who does them really well is Seth freaking Rollins. And I thought the way they worked together in this match was incredible. Just the early stuff of Theory getting dealt with by the both of them, thrown out of the ring, I thought was great. All this kind of stuff. Rollins doing all those dives. We mentioned that, of course, when we did our stream recently, again, where we did cover Survivor Series 2012. We were doing a watch along of that event to kind of celebrate 10 years since the anniversary of the Shield. And of course, the biggest thing that happens in that, if you don't have time to watch the show or you don't fancy watching it because it wasn't a great PLE, but if you do want to watch it back and hear our kind of jokey comments about it, and check that out. And but if you just want to hear us talk about the Shield, then we've got a clip of that. I say clip, it's still 35 minutes long, so it's a podcast in itself, talking about the Shield and whether or not they are one of the best ever factions of all time. But we're talking in that about, Seth's kind of the clip that surfaced on Twitter a little while ago of him diving in and out the ring and all that kind of stuff. I think Seth saw that clip because, my goodness, he did the same sort of thing. It was a little bit different, the same sort of thing, and jumping and diving and flipping and all this sort of stuff as well. Great performance from him. And before I hand it over to you, just want to quickly touch on the kind of end segments again with the triple threat side of it. Doing a double hurt lock, I thought was fantastic. Theory and Lashley having the pin when we had the Phoenix Splash that was missed and stuff like that, and then he ends up doing the Frog Splash to break up a pin, using Theory for the stomp on Lashley, and just seeing the gears kind of move in Rollins' mind as he set that up, because I thought he was going to 1 foot stomp on both of them. So that would have been cool, but what he did as well, kind of a Matt and Jeff situation, was fantastic. And then, of course, the superplex into the Falcon Arrow that ends up going to a spear, and then, oh my goodness, Austin Theory wins, which I did not expect. And again, I was worried that it would kind of be like, well, why did he lose the cash-in? But again, I think the argument is that the cash-in built this character to the point that they want him at now. So it wasn't about winning the title. Yes, he could have won it 2 or 3 weeks ago. Yes, he could have cashed in. and been successful. But I think they'll probably argue it's character based. Still not sure how that's going to go in the future. But as far as a moment goes and how I felt when that 3 count hit was, hey, it's why I'm a wrestling fan, man. I really, really enjoyed this one.
It's crazy, absolutely crazy. This match itself, is so good. It was so, and I feel like we got spoiled with the amount of good matches that are on this card that we got to see. And yeah, do you know what? If this was, let's say, for example, Roman isn't at Rumble, and these 3 went on, and this was like kind of the main event before the Rumble, obviously, Rumble. But this as a pre-main event, incredible. Like it just at any point, this is like Mania worthy of the way things were done. You know, it was so good. I really think we were spoiled with this one. Just the stuff going on, and it felt like all 3 of them, each guy had a specific moment where there was like, right, this is your time for you to really show, okay, this is why you're Seth. This is why you're in this match. This is what this title means. And the fact that I was able to show it in 3 different ways with 3 different guys that could not all do the same stuff, but a legit could almost do that same stuff, you know. And you think, how can you differentiate Seth and Theory when both of them can springboard? They're quite athletic. They can do this. But man, the way they done all of that was fantastic. The finish was good. The curb stomp stuff was fantastic. The spear from Lashley looked menacing. Just, I don't know. Like it's one of those things. Like, I feel we could talk so much about it, and I don't think we could do enough justice to how good the match was.
Yeah.
And I never thought I'd be saying that about a triple threat match. I mean, because Seth's been in summer have been absolute stinkers because of the finish. This finish just blew me away. Like Theory winning, and I think that was for me the shock of the night. I would have been. I felt like I was more shocked with this, whereas then if we'd have had a turn later on in the WarGames. But yeah, him. I mean, I looked and people were complaining about it on Twitter. It's like, well, we could have done it on a cash in. But I think the whole point is, I think people are missing the point of he lost a cash in, which changed who he was. He was this selfie taking guy. He was Vince's man. Like it was, it was like a chosen one of Vince. Well, Vince isn't there anymore, so he has to do something else. So let's take away this stupid, goofy gimmick that he's got. Let's make him more serious. Make him a badass as he was when he was in NXT, because he was great there. And let him showcase what he can do. Put him against Seth and Lashley, and man, how good was that? You know, him walking out was fantastic with that title. Like, I enjoyed it, and I think it was the right decision because now it does build more, and to see these guys go against each other again, and that's without Ali in a shuffle. So I'm 100% all for it.
I just want to touch on a comment you said there about us being spoiled, mate, because someone else that was spoiled was the people behind Beyblade, because my goodness, did they get a good deal. Well, then again, I don't know how much they paid for it, but I've never, ever seen someone's entrance video be cut seconds into it to show some Beyblades. We're just looking at it. Wait, but is that part of his video? Is that his video? Like Beyblade? He's got a strange character, but hey, still. No, it was just an ad, and then it was Beyblades everywhere. Don't know about that. Not a fan of that. I've got to say, a talking point for us here, but not a fan of kind of someone losing their entrance video because of that. I'm surprised I haven't done it before. In some ways, I'm a fan because I think it's good marketing. In other ways, who's going to suffer in future? Maybe Theory could do with it this time because he is in transition as a character, but maybe that's the reason why you shouldn't do it. I don't know. But yeah, quickly, thoughts on the Beyblade situation?
I was baffled, I'll be honest, for a minute. When I first see it, because I see it happen, and it happened so quick, but I was too busy paying attention to Theory and like the intro and his entrance and stuff.
Yeah.
And then when I was going back through Twitter, I was like, was that was Beyblades? So I looked again, and all of a sudden, Beyblade's trending. And I'm thinking, look, what a marketing tool. Like, how...
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about it now as well, good or bad. Like, and they said this match is brought to you by Beyblade and stuff like that. They've done stuff like this before where they've had the KFC stuff and all that as well, when, all that stuff as well. But yeah, hey, just an interesting thing to mention there. Now I just want to get into some of my concerns. Number one was, as much as it was a great match for all of them, I thought they were all great in it. Lashley feels lost for me because, Yeah, I don't know what he's doing next because, again, a few months ago when he won that match and he was signaling he wanted the title, a fan gave him a replica belt. He held it up. They kind of rewarded him, I think. They gave him the US title. That run, as I said on the build-up yesterday, not much happened in it. As much as I appreciate him, it wasn't as good as his WWE title run or anything he did with MVP of the Hurt Business. And then he feels lost in the sense that he's been doing that to his song "Dun Dun." Doing that, and like, is he a heel? I don't know what's going on. Why is he still doing that? Is he a heel or babyface? He was all over the place in this. He performed well, but I think he's lost. I think they've lost him. I don't know what they're doing with him. I don't know what's coming next. And he's so great, and I think he deserves something good. And I really hope we get something definitive with him soon. The Brock thing was good, but again, he kind of turned. He acted heelish at the end of, was it the last PLE or the one before that? And I was like, oh, here we go. And now he's still doing a dun 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 because he hasn't quite fully got that over yet. Like, he was still working on it. So it's a really weird time for him. I feel like we're in transition with him, and I don't know what to. And that's what I worry about. My other concern is Theory. As much as not the cash-in thing as such, more that I understand that side of it, is that he's already been US champ. So what do we do? What's he doing now? This whole,
is it going to be any different?
Yeah, because they said, oh, right, as they always do, such and such is here to elevate the title. And it's like, well, sooner or later, the title's got to mean something and not need elevating, guys. So we can't all be there to elevate the title. So is it elevated? I don't know. It depends how it's going to be used, and it depends on the other titles around it. But now it's just like, where's he going to go now? Is Seth going back after him? Again, that all this time going up to the Rumble. Is this a dangerous time to change that? Like I say, is it going to be different to the reign that we saw previous? Why has he got that title? I'm not sure. Well, aren't we back where we started when he won the briefcase?
A little bit. But so to answer your thing with Lashley, I agree. He's going to get lost because the character transition. Because at one point, his thing was, I'm going to do anything I can to get my title back. And now he's kind of like a tweener. He could be face, he could be heel. And I don't think he really knows, and I don't think they really know what they want to do with him. If you're gonna make him heel, make him a heel, and if you're gonna do that, bring back the Hurt Business. Like I mean, if you're gonna do it, bring them back, man. I mean, if there's ever a time to do it, bring them back, because when he was the US champion, he had the Hurt Business, and man, he looked $1 million. Like the suits, everything about it. So I'm not against that. And he said at some point he wants to bring them back together again. So to have the Hurt Business back would, it gives them guys something to do.
It gives
the
him
stuff with
Omos.
Well. Yeah, I mean, you could stick Omos with them, I guess. MVP still floating around still. And make something of it. Triple H likes his factions, and this is got a legit faction that's already.
They're one of the best we've seen in recent era.
There we go.
It's crazy that they're not using them. So.
But it's that, and then the thing with Theory is, I have obviously one or two things. So the idea of him going against Cena was floated around before. Cena mocked him, and that was when he was in his selfie Sammy Guevara stage, I guess. That's what we got.
Yeah. And he did do. I didn't see it, but I saw a clip of it, or might have seen a thumbnail or something where I think he was calling out Cena to the fans in Boston outside. Outside the arena. So they are definitely playing with that. Yeah.
So the two things, though, I think it's either Cena. I feel like Cena has to come back, right? Because I think he has unfinished business in what's going on. If it's against Theory, I would hope so, because the US title and Cena done like the open challenge for it and all this stuff. So he gave that a legacy in a way, done it like Kevin Owens popped up from it, Sami Zayn popped up from it. Just to name a few, I mean, just saying that, and these two are in the main event of this PLE that we're talking about. That says something. But then could he come back and go against Gunther, because that's the only title that he hasn't won, which is the IC? I don't know.
I don't think now's the time for that.
No, exactly. Which is why I think it's Austin Theory I think he's going to do his thing and start calling people out.
I hope so. Especially, and putting the US title again, that link. Because there was that kind of link before. People thought, and they are kind of similar in some ways. I was watching him yesterday, and I was thinking, like this whole kind of chosen. Like he looks like what I can see why Vince sees a future in him, because he does remind me a lot of Cena in the sense that he's playing a different character to what Cena becomes when Cena's the heel, the Thugonomic Cena, which is my favorite. But I love that version of Cena. we were probably watching it going, "Oh, this is so cool," but WWE's kind of higher ups were probably watching it going, "Yeah, we're getting him to hate him. We're getting him this. We're getting him ready. We're teaching him this and stuff like that because eventually this guy's going to be a mega babyface." And I probably wouldn't have seen it, especially not in the way that he becomes a different character pretty much as well. Of course, they transition Chain Gang and stuff like that, but eventually he's a different character. And I think they're probably looking at Theory in a way that we don't see him just yet. And I was trying to watch the match yesterday through the eyes of someone that is a higher up in the same way they probably looked at Cena and probably are looking at Theory thinking someday this entire crowd could be cheering for you because you are the kind of the hero of the kids and whatever else. I think they do see that much potential in him. And it was kind of interesting to kind of realign the way I thought about it for you, as much as I'm enjoying what he's doing lately as well. And he's pretty much his run as the cocky kind of selfie guy. I like that as well. I thought it was funny. I think it's going to be if it all works out, it's going to be an example of something where we look back and we go, just like Cena, wow, he was a completely different character. And people booed him and stuff like, and now he's a megastar. I think that is a possibility with Austin Theory, and I think a way to get him there, I think the Cena feud, again, just because of those parallels and comparisons, would be great. It could be at the Rumble, 9 weeks to build that now, of course, or it could be at WrestleMania. I mean, what better way to bring Cena back than a WrestleMania?
I think, do you know what would be great? And I know it's a cheap booking, but imagine the heat. So you got to look at it from a factor of the heat that Theory would get, but the build that he would get and the legacy and the passing of the torch he'd get from it. So let's say Theory's in the Rumble, right? He's got the US title. Cena comes out, huge pop. The crowd goes bananas. Theory throws him out.
Yeah.
Because that's an instant build there for Mania. And then you could do that with or without the title. But having the title there is I think, is that extra cherry on top.
Definitely, and you don't need, and that adds extra life to the title as well. And you don't need, and Cena can go like, this is for the America, he plays up to that stuff, and this represents the nation, and it represents what I did years ago with this title. There's a lot to tell in the story there with the title, but like you say, without it as well. Even if they do that thing where Theory throws Cena out, Cena would, a veteran would be like, "What, you threw me out? That's not enough to start a feud." But if Theory then come out the next night and went, and I threw John Cena out, and made that his kind of big thing. And then Cena comes out and go, look, you throw me out, everyone against everyone, that's fine. But now you want to disrespect me and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's how they get into that feud. If they're not basing it on the title as the initial spark, then the Rumble, like you say, could be a good way to do it. And if that's where we're going with Theory, and that's where the US title's going, hey, I'm all for it.
Even if they done what you said, and then to add, even if Theory was like, you're not worthy of a title shot, I can do an open challenge, but no Cena. So, do you know what I mean? It's things like that to play up to that. You can do the open challenge. He'll beat everyone. Cena isn't worthy to have an open challenge. Cena needs to prove himself because he hasn't been around while Spear is doing what he's doing. Earn it. So that would make Cena be around that time and the build up, even if it's just 2-3 weeks building up to Mania. It's like, earn your spot. You can't just come back and get an open title. So earn it. And again, that plays into hatred of Theory, the build for Cena, putting him as again weirdly a babyface over as a veteran over the guy that needs to push. Do you know what I mean? But it's perfect. I think that sounds like it's good booking because it gives Cena something to do, it gives Theory something to do, and at the same time, it's elevating. Even though it kind of, I wouldn't say it elevates. It has to elevate Theory because it can't do anything other than. I mean, if you're getting in a ring with Cena, for crying out loud, you don't moan about that. Like,
And what
do you know what I mean?
What I like about it is that they know. Like I think just like with the Rock situation with Reigns, they know this is a thing that they'd like to see happen. So I think that's why they've allowed Theory to do it, to call him out and stuff like that. And like I say, bringing Cena back at Mania and giving him something kind of worth doing rather than he's just back and now he's in this feud. Like it's one that makes sense. It's like when The Rock came back, it made sense that it was for Cena. That's what we wanted to see. So the story's already there, and they're just gonna kind of build off of that. And again, the comparisons and stuff like that, I do think kind of play up to it. But yeah, hopefully that's what we see. But again, great match that we saw anyway here at Survivor Series between the three of them. A bit of a shocking result, but I'm all for the way it went down in the match. I just hope what happens after it is hey, even half as good as what we saw in the match, because that would be fantastic. Now let's move on to the main event, Rob. It is time, of course, to talk about the other WarGames match, and this is the one between the Bloodline versus the Brawling Brutes, Kevin Owens and Drew McIntyre. As I mentioned earlier on, it starts out with Dusty Rhodes shirt on Kevin Owens as well. And one of the early things we see, of course, starting out, I think this one did start slower than the women's one. But what I did like about it was the fact that Roman Reigns had a stool to sit on, which I thought was quite funny. But the shots that they used there as well, and of course, the big part of it is when he sends Sami. And he said to Jay backstage, and we mentioned the backstage segments earlier on, he says to Sami, you need to go in the ring now and you need to help Jay. And Jimmy has to stand back. And boy, does he help Jay. You know, he helps him out of the way already. Again, I thought this was a really good match. It was slower paced, and then they bring the weapons in. I'm not sure it needed it, but there were a few spots where they used them, so fair enough. But yeah, just a few kind of big things before I hand it over to you. I love the fact that Drew said he was feeling oozy. I thought that was hilarious. I weren't too sure about the weapon stuff, but hey, it is what it is. The white noise off of the ropes was really cool for Sheamus as well. The Brutes and the rest of their team doing the pounding in the middle section. As I mentioned, there's a middle section being used for Mia Yim earlier on. It was really cool to see it used in this match as well. And of course, the big thing that comes out of it is Sami Zayn kind of aligning himself fully with the Bloodline. Firstly, we see earlier on, he helps Jay. Again, we pulls him out of the way. Jay super kicks him by accident. Jay and Jimmy look at each other a bit kind of, what do we do? Still not quite sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, it seems. And then later on, of course, the way it ends, like the drama, like I just felt so fulfilled when I watched the end of this match. I thought it was so well done. I was like, I know there was a lot of talk about Sami Zayn turning, but we kept saying last night, and Michelle on the build up as well, I think said it as well, that it's not the time. Like there was a time where the stable got stale. Now it isn't stale. It is going, you know, it's working fine. Let's not rush it or anything like that. There's a lot of places we can go with this still. And I think the fact that they used the Kevin Owens thing was fantastic. You know, that every single part of it was great. Stopping the ref's arm, but not hurting Kevin at first, I thought was fantastic. And then eventually having to take that next step to low blow Kevin, and then two giving the hell of a haluva kick, and then of course letting Jay be the one, you know, sacrificing his best mate basically for Jay to basically take over and then pick up the victory. And of course we get the hug, we get the embrace, and we get a pumped up Sami Zayn telling people it's about the Bloodline. I don't think the end of this match could have been any better. I thought it was executed so well. Even the small stuff from Owens falling into Zayn. You know, we've seen that before with, you know, Shawn Michaels and stuff like that. You know, falling into Zayn and just holding him and just slowly putting him down. It was fantastic, mate. What did you think about the match in general? And what did you think about the story being told with the Bloodline and Sami?
Man, this was so good. So good. And I think anyone that criticizes, you need to go back and rewatch it, because the storytelling in this was phenomenal.
As a match, I don't think it was as good as the women's, but the last 5 or so minutes and things sprinkled in between, it's what it was all about. This was the story match.
Yeah, this whole match is based for the story. And it's weird to say that, because normally it's about a title or the win and all this sort of stuff. But the story was kind of what led this match and this whole build for at least the Bloodline anyway. But it was so good. I mean, the things that Sami done, you know, the haluva kick. I don't know if you've seen the picture. I'll send it over to you in the group chat. It's got 20. I think it's 2016. Kevin Owens holding up Sami Zayn, and then in 2022, Sami Zayn holding up Kevin Owens in the exact same way. And I thought it's. And I say it a lot. It's like, you know, when you get the open end or the start and the finish of poetry, you got the big at the beginning, then the finish at the end, and it's like it's perfect finish. It's like a perfect finish. And I just felt like everything that needed to happen in this match to tell the next part of this Bloodline story happened, and it was like watching a kind of, as you said, like a drama series at the beginning, and then at the end of the match, you think, well, the Avengers have assembled, I guess. They
told the story they needed to tell. I was still, even going into it, I was like, I don't know if this is what I wanted to see right now, because I was like, especially if it was flirting with the idea of it kind of being over, I was like, I definitely don't want it to be just yet, even though it would be a great moment. I think there's more places to go with this. and hopefully they know what they're doing. That's why they're holding out. But you know what I was annoyed about, we mentioned it on the preview, we mentioned it on the build-up, not having that kind of Samoan war paint, and for
I was
the
annoyed.
other side to even use like, you know, Celtic war paint and stuff like that. I thought that was a shame. It's a real shame they didn't play up to the WarGames stuff in that. But they did have all the kind of camo and all that kind of stuff on the promos, which they didn't earlier in the week. So that, I thought it was about to really go full force into that, and they didn't do it. That frustrated me. But what we got storyline wise, I think kind of made up for it. And even the action in the ring, like we're mainly talking about the Bloodline here, but we saw some great stuff involving the other guys as well. I think Pete Dunne was fantastic in this match. Him and Ridge working really well earlier in the match. Drew, again, great performance from him. As I said earlier on, Sheamus with a white noise off the rope. Another top rope move from the Usos in the 1D like we saw last month as well. The spinning solo, I think it was called. That kind of weird spinning rock bottom that Solo does to Drew McIntyre through the table as well. I just thought it was such a kind of monumental match, like something that people are going to remember, even if they don't remember everything that happened in the match, because there were dry spells, don't get me wrong. Storyline wise, and the big moments were exactly what they needed to be. And man, I'm just so excited to see where they go with the Bloodline next.
Yeah, me too. There was something that I really see, and the picture of it, I think, does it even more like justice. Is when Solo's standing there before he goes in, and he's standing there just staring at the brutes that are in the cage. He's got his arms folded, and I was like, do you know what? You just don't want to mess with that guy at all. He doesn't care, and you know, like the look of him. But again, everyone played a part that they needed to. Everyone looked good. The spots that they done were fantastic, and what else I like is there's stories within a story, because you have the overall thing that's going on with WarGames and the Bloodline versus like the brutes and the honorary brutes, as we called them yesterday. And then Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Just that's I get a tale as old as time. Those two together, they're just you know, 20 odd years, I guess.
So many layers that they used the Kevin Owens thing in such a good way. We all mentioned it when it got announced, you know, oh, let's just call it Kevin's in it. They got that part of the story, and they really kind of drove into it, you know, like there was again so many layers, and even like you said, every character I think looked really good. Like everybody was made to look important and their own defined thing, you know. Solo looked like a badass, like you said. Drew didn't look like someone that was falling. He was annoyed at Solo, that bit between the two of them, because of what happened at Clash. You know, there were so many stories to tell within this that it was just while I was a bit thinking, you know, off about the pacing of some of the early part of the match, I think it suffered a bit more than the women's one did. I do think storyline wise, there's nothing better than it, and that's what I think this show was good for. Like we said, like we had Finn and AJ that was based on the history between the two of them guys. We had Shotzi and Ronda, which I think was an improvement for both of them, and they worked well together and probably better than most people expected. We had the women's WarGames match, which was weapon based and in-ring action, completely different to the men's. We had the men's, which had the fantastic story being told, and then we had a fantastic triple threat, which elevated the title and kind of papered over some of the cracks with you know, the character stuff within that match as well. So
but all three guys as well, not just one of them, all three of them.
Exactly. But I mean, I felt it was such a great show, and only 5 matches, the WarGames matches do go on a bit, but for me I thought it was a really, really good pay-per-view, PLE even, and kind of gutted that we haven't got one to talk about in December. Do you know what I mean? So that's the thing now. But how good is it, mate, to be like consistently coming out, you know, after these pay-per-view PLEs and saying, well, that was fantastic. Do you know what I mean? Like every single, like they're hitting them out of the park every single month lately. And it feels good to be a WWE fan again. That's all I'll say, man.
I think, do you know what? I don't want to, because we're riding on such a high, I don't want to bring a negative thing in. But the only thing I feel like was missing from this would have been adding a final match, even if it was on the pre-show, and just having the traditional Survivor Series elimination. That is my only negative comment that I could give it. How did you feel about them using the opposite ring as well? So they used one ring for the show, then they swapped it. And
they have done that before, actually, where they've gone one match is here, one match there. Is that what you mean? Where they've gone from one ring?
They've gone from one ring. Then
I think that's good. I think that's good because of the fans. You know, it's unfair for the fans in one corner to have a much further view all night when they could easily switch it over. So I think it was good. I think because of the number of matches being odd, it didn't balance out exactly, even, but I think the effort was there, and I'm sure they've done that before in NXT. I actually thought it was going to, and sometimes they keep it away. They try not to even show the other ring as much as they can, and sometimes we've had, I think in NXT where people ran into the other one and stuff like that. I really thought we were going to get Bobby Lashley throw Theory into the second one. But I think where it was the first time it was on the main roster, they were careful not to kind of use the second ring at all, really. So it got some interesting camera shots though, especially in the Finn AJ match. I noticed it where they had the cameraman set up in there as well. Well, it was in there, like
lower, wasn't it?
But yeah, he could get different kind of shots because he was stood up on the ring level, so it's quite good for that as well. But yeah, man, full praise from me, man.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and do you know what? As literally what you said with the idea of them throwing someone into the other ring, but then I think we had 2 different WarGames go on in the same show, and this is the promo, I guess, the footage they're going to use for promo going forward, without them doing another WarGames yet. So to be able to just throw someone in the ring, it will take away from the other ring's there. I forgot about that because this match is happening. So they've not used everything too soon. So now when a little thing like them being thrown or eliminated or thrown out to the other ring, and you think, oh well, where'd they go? And all of a sudden they just dive in from there, and you think, oh, they've just reboarded up. It's those moments you'll get later, and I think someone like Ricochet would abuse the abilities that Ricochet,
or even Seth. That triple threat could have used it quite a lot. But I think you're right. It probably was best not to this time because
it would have been overkill. I think.
Yeah,
and then we would have been moaning.
Exactly, and then people. And when they do it, and I'm sure when they did it in NXT, I'm pretty sure they hadn't done it straight away. And then when they did it, it was kind of like that. It was like, oh, look, remember, there's a WarGames match later, and that's why that's there. And they quickly moved away from it. But yeah, so no, fantastic show, man. Really, really enjoyed it. Not only that, really enjoyed Survivor Series coverage this year. Of course, we've gone quite deep on it, and I think we're gonna have to do the same with December, mate. Seeing as there is no PLE to talk about, but hey, there's a lot of Rumble history we can go through, I'm sure, as well. Of course, what we're referring to is some of the streams that we've done recently. We did a watch along of Survivor Series 2002, of course, similar to this one in the sense that they changed up the theme of Survivor Series, but stuck with the kind of elimination thing. We had the first ever elimination chamber. So if you want to see our reactions to that, we'll watch it along with yourself. We tell you when to start the stream, and we kind of have a running commentary and just kind of do a review as we go along, talk about memories of the show and stuff like that. After that, we did 10 years on with the Survivor Series 2012. Of course, the big thing that happens at this show is at the very end. I'll be honest, not the greatest show, but if you want to hear us have a laugh about a show that, hey, wasn't as fun as 2002 or 2022, then that's a good stream for you there as well. And of course, at the end, we talk a lot about the Shield. If you haven't got time to watch 2012 over again, and you don't want to put yourself through it, and you do want to just hear our thoughts on the Shield and 10 years of the Shield, then check out the clip video that came out. I say clip, I keep mentioning it. It's long enough to be a podcast itself. It was about 35 minutes of us talking about our thoughts on the debut of the Shield, all the early stuff, the riot gear, the things, the way their characters changed, the feuds they had, what they've done individually as well. It was a real kind of fun conversation between myself and Rob. Again, I know a lot of you like to go back and watch the build-up show, even though we're kind of hyping yourself and ourselves up for a PLE that's now been and gone. We do still go into some interesting topics there and deep dive into some interesting conversations about the current scene in pro wrestling as well. But of course, you've been joining us for our recap and review. And as I said, we kind of do that. We did a build-up show and we do a preview and prediction show every PLE when we can. We'll try and hit all of those notes as well. On top of that, on this channel, we've got a lot of interviews from the likes of us with Damian Priest, to our conversation with Bianca Belair and even Rhea Ripley as well. A lot of great interviews there, if I do say so myself. So give those a little watch if you're brand new here. Thank you to everyone that's come on the stream tonight, whether you've watched it live with us or you've watched on demand. We really do appreciate it. And yeah, we hope you enjoyed all of these streams like we have, and we hope you enjoyed Survivor Series like we did as well. But the general consensus for me, Rob, from what I've seen, is that people are pretty pleased with this show. And again, general consensus about what we've done as well. People seem to be pretty happy, so that's always nice as well. But yeah, any final thoughts before we get out of here and start moving on to our sights towards the Rumble?
Not really, not much. Do we have a score sheet? Is that all finalized, or we?
No, it's not finalized yet. So our predictions, it's been a bit messy lately, of course.
Lionel.
Lionel So we'll go over that again and talk about our predictions leading into the Rumble. I think we'll try and wrap a lot of things up there and
Yeah.
things up and go from there again. Of course, what we're talking about is our usual predictions table, which we run mania to mania. But hey, this will keep building the suspense till then, at least, I guess. But yeah, anyway, been a good stream once again, Rob, and thank you for coming on. Thank you everyone else that joined us today. And yeah, what we'll do is we'll pump you with a lot more content on this channel, even if it isn't going to be for an upcoming PLE in December. What we'll do, of course, is try and find ways to keep yourself entertained and subscribe to us here at the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. So if you haven't done that yet, please subscribe, ring-a-ling-ding that bell, and yeah, tell your friends, family, and enemies, and stick with us here at Rebellious Noise. I've been Scott. This one over here has been Rob, and we'll see you on the next one.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.